Hey, welcome to the Capital Fit Podcast. This is Dan Barnard with my co-host, Dr. Richard Jacoby. We have a very special guest in our studio today. I'll give you his name here in a moment, but just wanted to do a shout out and say thanks to Pod Populi for creating such a great experience here in podcasting, making it easy for the consumer. This is my 5th podcast, and there's some exciting things going on with the growth of the company as well. So thanks for Pod Populi and the staff here down at the Old Town Scouts off Marshall Way. But I'm really excited about having my new friend here who we met in Belize literally 3 weeks ago. And we met on the beach, and before we know it, he's like, why don't you do a dive with me? We're going on the reef. It's outside of Ambergris Cay, Belize area, one of the top dive spots in the world. And I said, it's been 5 years, but sure, why not? From that point forward, next day we're 90 feet underwater, viewing the beautiful fish and pufferfish and sharks, and that was it was an experience and a half. But we have Saleem Fernandez here from Houston, here in town, staying at the W Hotel with his wife Kelly, and so welcome to the studio.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. Well, in a minute here, we'll get the story going. But what I truly appreciate, and I said, I got to get you out here. We have some work that we got to do together and make great things happen. After hearing his story, just riding from the dock where we did the dive all the way back to our resort in a gas-powered golf cart, and had like a 30-minute conversation. I'm like, my gosh, what a story! You got to get here. I want to tell on the podcast because you got a lot to say. So, Saleem, welcome, and we got Rick here. The podcast is about capital, meaning your money, businesses, how you run businesses. And then the fit part is about, being fit physically, mentally, but also, taking care of the capital that you've been the steward of, whether you're, the company owner or you have a significant, role in the company. It's about capital fit, realizing your true wealth by realizing your true health. And we can talk about another experience we had this morning I think was very unexpected here during the podcast, and we'll get to that in a minute. But Saleem, why don't we just start off with you have a fascinating story of success, of where you came from, the advice from your dad that has been given to you, and the guy, the business owner, entrepreneur that you are today, family man. It all got started where?
San Antonio, Texas, 1982. I was born into a very entrepreneurial-minded family in general. Lebanese, Hispanic family. I grew up very Lebanese, though, in a very Hispanic town. But I definitely appreciate and love both sides, and I definitely embrace both sides. But in that, you got a lot of the characteristics that follow. Big family,
yep.
Big birthday parties, obey the authority, right? You got the older men that you respect. The mothers are kind of the disciplinarians. But of course, I learned a lot of my entrepreneurial mentality from watching my uncles and my great uncles kind of do their thing in the produce department. My father, the Reprographics business. And I grew up in athletics as well. I mean, he pushed it down my throat, which was, phenomenal back then. I loved it. I couldn't imagine doing it today. It's just an entirely different world. I don't even think it's healthy anymore. But back then, it was a key ingredient to teaching me and getting me the foundation that you need to deal with people and adversity and challenges.
Right.
The ebbs and flows of a game or through business or through life. And I learned that really at a young age. And then, of course, it was beneficial to be really one of the better guys on the team always. So I naturally became a leader. And then that just transitioned into, middle school to high school, college. I played football in college. And I actually left college a little earlier than I was supposed to because I found a business opportunity.
Right.
And, I can only really give credit and thanks to the generation before me to have given me the foundation. And my father played a humongous role in that. His work ethic, 7 days a week. If he had a cell phone back then, although it was kind of a pager, his cell phone would have been on all day, 7 days.
Yep.
You know, it's just what it takes to be a businessman, right? So, and he provided fantastically. You would have never known that we grew up super middle class, probably less middle class. And he didn't catch a break really until I was a freshman in high school. So all the way up until I was about 14, 15 years old. We really lived a very modest life, 3-bedroom, 6 siblings. Like it was a tough way to grow up, but it was by no means we thought we were poor. So, we got to experience it, and I got to see how hard my dad worked. I got to see how hard my uncles worked and all the things that they did. And it just burned into kind of the personality and the character that I have becoming a businessman myself.
For sure.
Yeah.
At lunch, you said something about your dad, about the advice he gave you. And then we also talked about one of the books that you actually read cover to cover that influenced you. The book Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. Yeah. So what did your dad say again?
So, I mean, of course, it was huge, for him to read that when he read it. And I don't even know when he read it. But I read it when I was 16 years old. And he kept pushing it on me. And I was like, what the hell? I'll read it. And I got into a few pages and I said, all right, we're getting in. And we're talking about Monopoly. All right, we're getting into things that like started making sense. And so I ended up reading it cover to cover and it all through high school. And kind of proud of it, not proud of it, but it was the only real book I read in high school.
Yeah.
Of all the books that they make you read and they make you do research on or they make you give exams on, I always did like that Cliff Notes version where you just kind of read this little essay or the side of it and take the back of it. Just, okay, I read the book. But it was the only one that I truly understood that I could regurgitate, later. And so, I always had that in the back of my mind of what that story was. And Kiyosaki's just a genius. I mean, his story is absolutely amazing. So now I'm 40, right? So now to be 40 and to see some of the ways some of the things have played out at my age, like it did at his age. I mean, obviously he's exponentially more wealthy, right? But the steps that it takes, and you kind of get to you read the book and you kind of get to see it play out. And my dad had so many quotes and so many ways of business and in life that he would quote out of that, or he would just literally say, "Rich Dad, Poor Dad." It would almost be like a verb.
Yeah.
Right. And I knew what that meant because I was the only kid of his that read it. And I was so intrigued by it that I was like, you know what? Let me go to work with you, Dad. I'm 15, 16, 17 years old working for my dad, which was, painful. But he owned a very successful Reprographics business, print shop. Ended up being bought out by a pretty big wig out of Arizona, Thomas Reprographics.
Yep.
And they do a ton of printing all over the country, really. They're the biggest ones now. But they went through a period where they were just buying all the small mom and pop print shops that had a good stakehold in their town.
Right.
And my dad had really put his foot down for like the valley of Texas. So Corpus Christi, Brownsville, McAllen, San Antonio, Austin. I mean, he really had his handcuffs around like that part of Texas. So he was the big player down there. And hit a home run, sold the business. And I kind of got to see what life was like after you're successful and you do well. We started getting some materialistic things, and parents built a house, and this whole time I just thought my dad worked. Didn't understand why he worked so hard, and so to see that develop into something that was truly beneficial for our family, we all benefited from it. It really just gave me aspirations to just do that and give that to my family one day. And then here I am now, wife, 3 kids,
right?
Just trying to replicate everything that guy taught me.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. So he grew up, got the work ethic from dad, worked the business, attempted college. That didn't go as planned. You end up, from what you told me when we were hanging out in Belize, that you got a job just at a bar.
It was bar. Yeah, it was
bar.
Yeah, so
we got to let Rick chime in here because he did too.
He was in the bar business?
It was a hot dog stand selling Coke on the shores of where?
Ocean City, New Jersey.
Hey, man, service industry is the service industry. I don't care what the hell you're selling.
Yeah.
But you do learn that work ethic.
Yeah,
because it's 24/7.
Priceless.
You know what's interesting? Sharon Lecter lives across the street from me in Paradise Valley. She is Kawasaki's co-author.
No kidding.
Yeah. And the book I read was, when I was growing up, was Think and Grow Rich, which has the same flavor. And Sharon actually owns that sequel to Napoleon Hill's book. So those seminal works that you read, and I'm listening to your story, and I'm saying to myself, I can't really remember the books I read in high school other than that book, which I read on my own.
Yeah.
And I did pretty well because of that book, because I saw it play out just the way you said that. It plays out. Mm-hmm. And it's not a complicated book. Mm-mm. It's a very simple concept. And if you apply it, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
And it just comes to you. It's just amazing. I'm mesmerized by your story.
Thank you.
And I had a similar father who had a construction business, to my brother and I, on Saturday morning, it's 20 below zero. Miserable. And he always said, we're going to work the sunny side today. Well, I guess there is a sunny side of the building.
Where it's 40 degrees, probably.
Exactly. Yeah. And he was wearing a T-shirt.
Yeah.
That kind of ethic. Yeah. But we had fun. When I look back, that's how you do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, goodness sakes.
So I was playing football at the University of Houston, and I was going through this weird period because I had just transferred. And back then, when you transfer from one college to another college, you can't just play the next year. So you have to sit out per NCAA, which is not how it is now. So I was in this weird rut where I was on the team, to take care of my school, but I couldn't play. I could practice. And so I had this weird time where I couldn't really, I wasn't prepared to play because I couldn't play. So it was, well, what the hell do you do on Saturdays? On Fridays when the team goes to the hotel, And then on Sundays when the team's doing, training and rehab and film, what the hell y'all need me for? And so it got to the point where I said, what the shit am I going to do on Friday, Saturday, Sunday? I mean, I'm working Monday through Thursday at the gym, doing 2-a-days, going through routes and training and drills and agility. I'm doing everything that the team does, but I can't do anything Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And my cousins had just gotten into town. They were going to do some bar concept, and I was really just bored, and I just wanted to be with my cousins. So it turned into, let's just start building this bar. And so I turned into a handyman in a sense with no real skill.
Yeah.
And then the bar opened, and it ended up it's still one of the most, probably one of the most successful stories in Houston specifically of bars. But it opened up in 2002, almost into 3, and a year and a half later, the Super Bowl came to Houston, and it's open, and I'm like a bartender, bar back. I don't remember what I was. But I got to see Joe Montana, and I got to see Andre Rison, and I got to see Barry Sanders, and I'm looking at all these. I mean, just it was the year that Larry Fitzgerald, who played here in Arizona, it was the year that he was at Pittsburgh, just getting drafted. So he's in college, leaving. Now it's February of whatever year that was. So that's how long ago this was, and it was the most epic experience I'd ever been a part of in my life. And I think the next day was like a Maxim magazine, party. And so I went from the NFL PA's party to the next day was the Maxim magazine party. And I said, I'm doing this for the rest of my life. There's no better thing to do. So I became a bartender. Then I became a door guy. Then I became the manager. And then over the years, 4, 5, 6 years into it, I developed all the skills to be able to just go out and do it on my own. And a little bit of cash was injected into my idea, and the rest was history. 17 bars and restaurants later.
Yeah.
I had a good team around me.
Yeah.
Houston's a phenomenal market, and those guys just drink for a living. So it was very hard to miss. Although you did have to run a really good show. It was fantastic but it just wasn't healthy, you know. It wasn't conducive to good marriage. It wasn't conducive to good lifestyle. Yeah. Staying up late, you know, drinking every day. Yeah. Temptation all around you. And I knew
you had the capital, you just didn't have the fitness.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That is totally correct. That's a great way to put it. Or the discipline. You know, I got in it young. Mm-hmm. And although I was in it for the right reasons, it didn't really go that way. As I continued to go down the road, and I saw the writing on the wall. I said, there's no way I can do this. I'm drinking like a fish, and, you know, I'm starting to gain weight, sleeping 2-3 hours a night. You know, if you're drinking 7-8 drinks on a Tuesday, I mean, get out of here, right? Like that's not even Saturday. And so, I knew it was time to pull the plug, but I'd learned so much. And I've always said, if you can run a bar for a year and not default on your lease, you can run a business of any kind. Yeah. It teaches you everything. You got to understand marketing. You got to understand HR. You got to understand ordering, inventory, payroll. You got to understand, you know, creativity, and you got to be a spontaneous, you know, being in the bar business, your Bud Light tastes the same down the street. I don't care how you want to word it. It's still the same beer, you know. Right. Grey Goose is the same as it is. What are you doing differently? Why are they coming to see you? And so being creative was definitely exhausting, and it was a challenge, but it taught me how to transition that into all the rest of my businesses, and being different, working harder, leading by example. Right. Those were all things that helped me maintain success in all the rest of the business ventures that I got into. Right. And it really catapulted my ability to raise money, because I think people started seeing, this guy works his ass off. You know, and there was a lot of times where I'd sacrifice the paycheck just to prove a point. I mean, my first bar, I took no salary. I told my partner, I'm just going to work for tips. I'm going to prove to you, year one, you're going to make your fucking money back, right, and we're going to do this. That's right. And 16 months later, we sold 5X. Yeah. I mean, it was just nuts. It was absolutely nuts. We barely had a year of P&Ls. And this guy who put in $700,000, you know, walking away with like 2.5. Yeah. It was just nuts. And so, of course, I parlayed all my part to the next bar. And, you know, but that's also the thing too with that business is you find yourself putting all your capital back into the next concept or the next remodel. Right. And that's where you get kind of in a rut. You never really see the money. You're just putting it into the next bar. And then your ego gets a hold of you and someone else opens up, I got to do better than that. You put up $40,000 light show. I'll show him. I'm going to do a $100,000 light show. Get all these LEDs and the DJ and oh man, that guy just put in $200,000 light show. God, here I thought I was cool. Wow. Next thing you know, you're $500,000 light show. And then that was really just, you know, and everybody in the world thought they could open up a bar. So there was competition left and right. And then the casual drink really took over. And I was more into like the dress code, the house music, kind of like the structure of what used to be the bar. Right. Or lounge or nightclub. The casual drink showed up and everyone started showing up in cargo shorts and sandals and t-shirt and couldn't enforce dress code anymore and backwards hats. And everyone just started looking sloppy. And with that became, you know, the $13 drink became $6 and $7 and $5. And next thing you know, your margins are gone. You're working twice as hard. Wow. And so I saw the writing on the wall, and then I got into a few other businesses that just completely changed my life. So it was worth it. Taught me everything I needed to know. Yeah. Got out.
Rick?
Wow. Good story.
Yeah.
This town is very similar to Houston because this is a big bar area.
Yeah.
A tourist area. And I have a lot of patients that are in that industry, and the stress is huge because it's 24/7. And so I treat that type of person, entrepreneur, and what they go through. And diabetes is a big problem. And so my book, Sugar Crush, addresses that in diet. Most people think it's exercise, which is a good part of it, but diet is essential. And you mentioned that amount of alcohol, which is a sugar. Mm-hmm. So did you feel that stress as you went through the entrepreneur channel that you were in, the bar business? Do you think the alcohol was just because it was part of the business, or it gave you more energy to do the things you thought you needed to do?
So when you put it like that, it almost gives me this moment here where I can think about the timeline of drinks that I chose to drink. Because you had to have a go-to drink. And my bartenders, and they all had to understand like my drink. Because I would just have to make it real quick because I would be socializing with my client or clients, and it had to be quick. Sometimes it'd be a fake shot. It would be just water, chilled, salt, lime, but it was a Patron, right? But I started with Crown and Diet. Then I went to Captain and Diet. And then I went to Red Bull Vodka. And I was just piling on the sugar. But these were like super simple drinks to make. And they were fast. And I never got into the craft cocktail. And I went from starting this entire thing at my leanest. I mean, I was probably 185. I wasn't playing weight, right? So I was just leaving football, a Division I football program where they, you're working out all the time, they're feeding you right. I mean, you're sleeping right. I mean, I was doing that. And I got to about 205 in a matter of maybe a year and a half, doing nothing. Didn't work out, just living my lifestyle and eating and drinking, staying up late. And I remember the migraine started setting in, and I remember getting terrible sleep. And after a few late nights with a few women, I started hearing that I was snoring. And it was something that I had never gone through, dealt with. Didn't know that. And now I started learning, well, now I know why I'm sleeping like crap, You can't go to bed at 4 a.m., wake up at noon, and toss and turn for 6 of those hours. Just can't do it. And so I definitely recognized that business was, and I said that at the beginning, is it wasn't conducive to, I was going to die at the rate that I was drinking. I was going to definitely die. And it totally triggered, the hair loss. It triggered the weight gain, triggered the migraines, just that very lethargic feel,
When you experienced these migraines, did you associate it with the sugar, the substance, or the add-on, or the alcohol itself?
So I started dabbling with the potato distilled versus rice distilled, grape distilled, and I learned real quick that I was definitely allergic to potato. I mean, the cheap vodka, all the stuff that you see in these well drinks, and we have a well special, and okay, that is the cheapest vodka you got out there. That's all potato distilled. That is the worst thing you could possibly do. So I actually got into becoming like a vodka snob, and I started learning which alcohols triggered me. And so red wines do it to me, and potato vodka, they do it to me. And it took years of drinking like a fish to figure out what was messing with me. So I got to the point where grape vodka or grape distilled vodkas were best for me. But really by that time, I was already on the scotch. And that was only because I became a mature drinker, somebody who wasn't just pounding drinks, pounding shots. My motivation was different when I changed from vodka to scotch.
That's the number one question I get. So in my book, Sugar Crush, I really didn't address it that much, but this new book, Unglued, that'll come out in a couple of months, I get that question all the time. And there is a way to select those alcoholic drinks that are considered keto, have less sugar, but they all have sugar. That's what alcohol means, alcohol sugar. But the way it's distilled and from what it's distilled from. Now, like the potato, I believe the Chopin.
Chopin is?
Yeah.
Yep.
But it's triple distilled. Did you notice that difference?
No, I didn't get into that. And I think that's kind of that game where organic isn't really organic anymore at the grocery store. You could say triple distilled, single, double, quadruple, didn't matter. I mean, it was potato.
Right.
And that maybe just allowed them to charge more for it.
But it is a big issue, especially, in America. The alcohol consumption is huge.
Yeah.
And Scottsdale is one of the highest in the world.
Yeah.
Because it's a party town. But what turns into a party turns into a lifestyle. And I, in my book, talk about Alzheimer's. We're talking about, Steve Forbes is talking about it's scandalous that we haven't been able to solve Alzheimer's. And to me, that's alcohol, that's sugar. And it's accumulative. And for the olfactory nerve, which is the sense of smell, and to where that leads to in the brain, which is called the hippocampus, that's the memory center. Well, Steve hasn't called into us yet, Dan, but he will call. And it is scandalous because what you just talked about is...
Scandalous, you're saying like criminal. Like it's
well,
not right.
I wouldn't...
They know better.
Yeah.
We should know better, and the FDA should know better.
Yeah.
Not that we're going to take alcohol away, but let's talk about the hidden danger of sugar, because that's non-alcoholic fatty liver.
Mm-hmm.
So high fructose corn syrup, which is probably in those side beverages, Red Bull and those kind of things,
Correct.
They have a lot of stimulants and artificial sugars, and most of the drinks out there have high fructose corn syrup, and that causes a non-fatty liver disease, which we're approaching 50% of the U.S. population with non-fatty liver disease.
You experienced all that, just
All
the
of it.
lifestyle.
All of it. And I'll tell you what, this country is too dumb to figure that out, in the sense that they will learn once they're firsthand impacted by it. And it's typically after their metabolism shuts down, 30 plus, 35, and they realize all the crap they did from 18 to 30, which was probably cool. And the trips to Vegas and the late nights in Miami, it was probably cool, and they probably got a lot out of it. And I've done it all. I wrote the book that they're still trying to read, and I know exactly how that book ends. Like nobody's invincible to that. And I've seen it take a toll on people's body, but you don't pay attention to it until your doctor tells you your A1C is 7.5, or your LDLs are 250, and you don't realize, well, what the hell does that mean? Well, I'll tell you what it means is the last 10 years of your life were garbage.
Well, this other person we talked about in the last podcast is a fellow by the name of Stanley Druckenmiller. He's a billionaire industrialist. He gave a commencement speech to the USC economics group. And I'll summarize what he said, but he was saying in the next 10 years, all the taxes that are consumed or taken in by the U.S. government, all of it will go to entitlements. And entitlements is Medicare and Medicaid. All of it in 10 years. Well, and of the pie of the healthcare system is big pharma. Mm-hmm. So we're going to spend our entire treasury
revenue.
Revenue.
Yeah.
I mean, the metaphor of a bar, mm-hmm. building a business, and having all that money, a country, and now they're not 40 years old. They're now 70 and 80, and they have non-fatty liver disease. And they have all that money, and they're going to be on the transplant list. Mm-hmm. And that's what our country is going to be on, the transplant list. We're going to be done.
Yeah.
But you figured it out. Changed businesses.
That was it. For me, that was it. For the people that just go out, aside from all the money they blow, I mean, I actually tried to tally it up myself. I had customers that were coming in $2,500, $3,500 a week. This is going on for years. If I had to do it and I was the owner, of course, I drank for free at every place that I went to. One, because I owned bars. So if I went to a competitive bar, they would just treat me with respect and they would give me anything I wanted for free. But if it was my own bar, I would drink for free. So I never truly was able to tabulate what I was truly spending. But millions of dollars I would have rung up in actual tabs for the drinks that I bought for people and the drinks that I bought for myself. That only ends one way, and you have to go through it, Doc. There's just no way that these people, and they all think they're invincible.
Well, yes, but does the country need to go through it? That's what Druckenmiller was saying. And
There's no fat 80-year-olds.
It's our generation that he's, explaining on his podcast or on his commencement stage. It's you that have to solve the problem.
Yeah.
That we created.
So when you look at the FDA, which is the Food and Drug Administration, I don't hear any conversation about the food supply, mm-hmm. which is artificial. We have fiat money and we have fiat food. Mm-hmm. It's all fake because high fructose corn syrup can make anything taste good.
Correct.
and it's a drug. But big pharma, which is the other side of the equation, food and drug, oh, well, here, take this pill. The average monoclonal antibody, if you can imagine this, such as Humira or something like that, for an inflammatory condition of psoriatic arthritis or rheumatoid, which is caused by sugar.
Mm-hmm.
And it cost $180,000 a year per person per year.
Yeah. So getting back to the capital that you built.
All that capital is going to be gone in the next 10 years.
But you parlayed that. You saw it, you recognized where you were headed. And then, so tell us about sort of the next phase of.
So throughout the bar business, I was always in construction. I built all my bars. I had a little bit of experience with it because my dad had that print shop, right? And the number one customer was architects, engineers. Hence, the name of his company was A&D Reprographics. And so as a kid, I was reading blue lines. I was understanding how to read plans, which is not easy. Like if you don't know, it's hard to look at a one-dimensional piece of paper and then see this building erected, right? And so at a young age, I was understanding how to read plans, how to sketch, how to scale, literally draw something to scale. And so I kind of taken a few courses in college and of drafting. And I just started getting a little creative and started designing bars. And then it became my bar. And then the next one became my bar. I had a few clients, hey, who designed this bar? I did. No. Who really designed this bar? I'm like, dude, I did. Cut the shit. Who designed this bar? I'm like, dude, I did.
Right.
You know, well, who built it? I did. Okay. Now, well, come build my bar. And so that became something for about half a dozen stores in about a year or two. So I had always done construction, and construction led me to my next venture, which was being the general contractor for a reasonably large startup, but became a indoor family entertainment facility or business. And they were going to come in and just go gangbusters, make a bunch of stores. And being a GC and having the crews and the trade, having the trades and getting all the materials, I just knew how to do it. And I remember I had put in the first proposal to do the first of I think it was 50 stores. The CEO is like, dude, if you can build it for that price and you can build it in that timeline, I'll give them all to you. And I'm like, dude, I really don't have time for that. You know, I got other businesses that I'm running and I've got other construction projects that I'm running, but I'll give it a shot. Sure. Built it on time, on budget. Boom. CEO comes down, sees the grand opening of what would have been maybe his eighth of what would end up being 160 stores. So this is 2016. Built that store. And he comes down and he says, dude, you're doing the next one. So it was the next one. And then, brother, I'm giving you 5 more. And it was the 5 more. And then next thing you know, I was in Georgia and I was in, Oklahoma, and I was just doing this random stuff. And throughout the course of that, I started opening up some of my own. I believed in the product. I saw it. I had some repeat customers, which meant they were building another store, which meant that the store was doing well enough the first time. And I had developed a relationship with that guy, and he'd really kind of shoveled me some really good locations. Wow. At the time, we didn't really know that because we weren't that big to where we were actually getting real market studies done by these big agencies to understand where are your kids from 2 to 14 and how many elementary schools do you have in this circle of 3 miles? How many elementary schools do you have in this circle of 5 miles? And where's the churches and understanding where the parks are? I mean, we didn't have that. We were just putting where we thought. That's parks. And anyways, 4 of my 5 stores just completely blew up. And it was the most money I ever made in my life.
Right. And
it changed my life. And COVID happened. And so I ran that gauntlet for about 4.5 years. COVID happened, which is really almost a part of the movie, is COVID could be its own movie, and just how it affected all the small businessmen.
And when you say movie, you're doing a documentary of yourself.
I am doing a documentary on myself.
I know. Yeah. For the audience, they don't know the movie. I know we talked about that.
Yeah.
Belize. So that's another whole fascinating part of where you're going.
But it's healthy for me to do it, just to log it chronologically. But the COVID happened, and I was kind of I was the guy that had to raise the capital to get all these stores, because these $3-4 million, you had to have the money to do it. You're getting everything from China. You had to build the actual build out. These are 40,000 square foot footprints, a lot of AC, a lot of electrical. And so the construction was huge. And of course, the marketing for it was huge, and everything was just big. And long story short, though, the businesses ended up having this huge downward spiral during COVID because nobody was bringing their kids to indoor gyms.
And you got crews out there, and you can't work because the states shut you down and couldn't.
That's
work.
correct. And I had
you're
two,
paying for the crews.
I had 2 in Florida. I had 1 in Arkansas.
Right.
I had 2 in Texas, and so I had 5. And every state,
people.
every state was doing something different. Couldn't work here. Could work here. This type of business could do it. This type of business couldn't. And it was lawyers, and then it was landlords, and then it was banks, and that was lawsuits and lawsuits and lawsuits. And I'm like, dude, I've never asked for a bailout in my life. I've never asked for $1 from the government. I've kicked ass on my own my entire life. Yep. But geez, anything you can throw me at this point, right? Like I got 80, 90, 100 employees at each location. We're talking 150 employees at one point. Then it turned into 800 employees. I'm like, I'm paying tax. I'm doing everything I'm supposed to be doing. I'm not failing because of anything I did wrong.
Right.
I'm failing because this country just completely dropped the ball.
Right.
And so I found an opportunity to sell, and this private equity group came in and paid me a Volkswagen of cash, and I took it, and it changed my life. And now I'm at a point where, kids can benefit from it. Wife is ecstatic. I've traveled more in my life the last 2.5 years than I ever dreamed of. I didn't get on a plane until I was 17 years old. My parents just couldn't do it. We just never did that. Yeah. So now I'm living this life that is just absolutely ecstatic, and I'm grateful for it. I'm humbled always by it. But I was able to kind of see the writing on the wall on so many different things, whether it was the early on stages of the bar business and my bad health, whether it was the infidelity in my life that caused me to be not the best human. And then it was the kids showed up, and then I had to be a better father. Yeah. And then staying disciplined, though, throughout the entire process and never losing that base to be able to manage money. And I joke about this often with some of my friends. I lost my first $1 million straight cash by 25 and a half years old. And I was blowing it on Vegas. I was blowing it on girls. I was traveling. I was drugs. I was buying. How many watches can you buy, right? I mean, you just can't do shit with cash. But I'm in the bar business, and a lot of it is cash, right? So I had lost my first $1 million doing stupid stuff. And I remember going through that period, car almost repoed, living in an apartment, had all this money, but just like, I don't even know what kind of rich you call this. This isn't rich, right? This is just paper mache money. And I told myself, man, I'm never going to go through that again. Like everything I learned through that process of having the collection agencies call you, having the repo man at your door, where's your car, IRS letters, and 500 and some odd credit score. I mean, it was just terrible. It was just awful. And my daughter was born in 2008, and I told myself, I'm changing this. I think I hired a credit agency that repaired credit. And then I got into a world where the money was real. It went into the bank account, I actually had credit card processing. And so I was paying taxes on income. I looked somewhat respectable to banks. And over the course of a few years, I became a legit businessman. But it was only because I was able to get my teeth kicked in the bar business at an early age. And that's kind of
and your dad watched you go through this.
All of it. And man, when he would come up and he would see the new bar and the new bar and the new bar, it'd bring him to tears.
Oh, I bet.
It'd just bring him to tears. And, the employees, they would always want to come to talk to me and learn something from me. And I felt like at this time, I'm like 30 years old, teaching 18 and 19-year-olds, hey, listen, man, save your money, dude. Yeah. Hey, man, don't get caught up with that. Yeah. That girl don't want nothing to do with you. Just don't make a mistake this age, man. Just, I felt myself being that guy at that age. Right. So, but it's all from him.
Oh, and we didn't get
it's all from him.
Your logo here. This is your company.
That's one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of them. Rockwood's been around for years. Consult, design, and build. It was just something that I thought had a cool ring, and the colors looked cool. But ultimately, it was just a little startup that turned into something decent.
And it's yours.
It's mine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And It's about as original as I am to rock and wood. But
what I love about you, you're just so humble. I mean, you've done all this incredible stories you told me on the beach. I'm like, dude, you're here 3 weeks later. I don't know if you want to talk about what happened on Saturday and the fact that you're here. I'm getting chills, even the fact that you're here in front of us. I don't know if you want to talk about that or kind of close the podcast on something else. So I'll just kind of let you take it.
So,
you got your 3 daughters, your lovely wife here, you're an unbelievable dude, family. We connected like in 2 minutes.
Yeah, we hit it off pretty quick.
And now you're here. So I'm thankful for you're here, and I'm thankful for, that you're really here because of what happened could have happened on Saturday that you told me this morning.
Yeah. There's definitely a higher power. And, when you go back and look at it, no other way to explain it. And it'll forever change my life. I'm obviously still dealing with it. Understanding how to process it is going to take time.
Yeah.
It truly will. It has affected me already.
Yeah.
I've had a little bit of time to talk about it. And honestly, I think it's more therapeutic now to talk about it, although it just happened Saturday. But Saturday, 4:00, I was in a plane crash.
What?
Yeah, Doc. I'm trying to tear up. So I'm sitting right seat. Captain, obviously, he's left seat. It's in a plane that I own. It's a 421. Twin engine. Cool little plane, right? I got 2 of my buddies in the back, teammates of mine back in the day. Played football at U of H. And we just left a fishing trip that me and my buddies always do once a year down in Port Mansfield, Texas. Amazing fishing going on down there. But us 3, we take my plane back and we're going. And so we're 6,000 feet and right engine goes out. And, it is a twin engine. So we have the other one. Plane kind of does a little weird turn. Obviously, you lose thrust out of the right engine. So the left engine's kind of pushing you through and plane's kind of flying at like a weird 20-degree angle. And, the pilot he's just absolutely genius. I mean, obviously I'm here talking to you because he was just an absolute badass. But he goes into recon mode and he's trying to figure out how to get that thing working. And of course, in my mind, I'm thinking, all right, let's just land. Like, this isn't worth it. I'll get a car. We'll just drive the next 5 hours. Screw it. But before you know it, the left engine went out. And you didn't know this?
No.
You don't know anything?
No.
But you could have at least picked him up.
And he's here. And
So,
oh my gosh.
So I'm he's so busy focused on the right engine, had no idea that the left engine is starting to pop. And before you know it, neither one of the engines are turning the propellers. And we go from going about 160, 70 miles an hour to 40. And I know this because we have some app that we can actually follow and we can see the altitude, speed, all that stuff. After the fact, I learned this. So we go from like 170 to 40, complete stall. And then we do this weird little turn to the left. And then you turn into a corkscrew. And now we're going straight down. And so we're spinning as we're going down, literally like a screw would. And we're going vertical. We're at 6,000 feet.
Well, not a rock, but I'm some screw.
And I'm sitting right seat, right? And
today is Tuesday.
Today's Tuesday. This
is Saturday.
Yeah. And I'd already had this trip planned. And I thought, you know what, babe? I brought my wife out here. I said, you know what? If I don't get on this plane, it may not happen again. I want to get on this commercial flight. I just want to see what it feels like. I want to see how I react to it. And then, of course, I just wanted to get out and stay busy because it's been hard. I've told my pops about it, cried. Told a few of my closest friends, my brother cried. But I'm getting to the point now where I could talk about it, and it hasn't quite crushed me yet. And I'm making it through just this conversation here, and it hasn't quite crushed me yet. So we're going through this spiral, right? And we're at 4,000 feet, we're at 3,000 feet. And the whole entire time, and we're saying the entire time, right? I mean, how long does it take a 2,000-pound machine, right, to drop 6,000 feet? It moves pretty fast. So now we're developing all sorts of speed. We're creating this. Now we're going about 180 miles an hour down with no engine. This is just pure weight. And I just remember sitting right seat, and in my head, my pilot's name was Tom. I hope he doesn't mind that I use his name. But come on, Tom. Come on, Tom. You got this, brother. Come on, baby. Come on, Tom. You got this, Tom. Come on, Tom. Come on, Tom. And at the time, I'm not even thinking about my wife and kids. I'm just thinking pure survival mode, right? I'm thinking, you're going to figure this out, dude. Like, I know you can figure this out.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at the ocean, and the white caps are kind of turning. We're coming down right over the ocean. And it's come on, Tom. Come on, bud. Come on, man. And this is
40 seconds into it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we're 45 seconds of just straight free fall. And it felt like 10 minutes, right? But I just remember, come on, man. Come on, bud. Come on. And I got my hands on the yoke with him. And we're doing everything we can to pull this thing up. And he's calling out commands, and he, of course, knows what he's supposed to do. And he's it's not working. And next, and you got to have the ditch. And I'm just like, come on, brother. Come on, man. Come on, man. And, of course, I got 2 teammates in the back who have no clue what's going on. They're just strapped in. And everyone can look right through the windshield. It's not the biggest plane, right? It's a 6-seater, but you can see right through the windshield. And we're all looking down at this ocean. And I'm looking at, we're getting down to 2,000. We're getting down to 1,500. I said, this is it. There's just like, this is it. Like, there's no way. And I start thinking, could I survive if I hit the ocean? Do we just blow up? Do we go 20 feet down? It's obviously better than hitting the ground. You hit the ground, you turn into a Coke can, right? You smash, done. And so I get into this, and then he goes, kill power, kill power. He kills power to the airplane, and I have no clue what that is. I'm just the right seat guy. I'm just a passenger in my own plane. I have no clue. And his training, he's just a beast, man. His training told him what to do. Kills power to the plane. And by doing that, he just turns the engines off, and he had no real clue that the engines were still pushing and giving us a little bit of thrust, and we couldn't physically get ourselves out. We couldn't beat the engines. The propellers were doing so much against us, we couldn't do it. And it dawned on him at probably 1,500 feet that he needed to kill power to the entire plane. And by killing power, and of course I learned this all after the fact, but by killing power at that point, you're just committing to the crash. There's no more saving it. You're just committing to the crash. And he kills power. We're no longer fighting the engines. And right rudder, because we're spinning left, right rudder, nose comes up at 800 feet. And we have so much speed that we have just generated coming down that we actually create some lift. And so now we have, we've got about 20, 30 seconds maybe. Because at this point, we're at 1,200 feet. And it's just get off the ocean. Get off the ocean, get to land, right? Where are we going to land? I said, the airport's back 2 miles. We're not going to make it. Okay, then let's get to the highway. The highway's right there. Let's go. And so we start kind of veering to the highway. We're at 1,000 feet. We're at 800 feet. We're at 700. We're falling faster than we're flying, by all means. I mean, we're beyond, we're way below stall speed. And it's the highway. We're going to the highway. And then he ditches. Can't. Oncoming traffic, right? 2 different ways. We had telephone poles. He's like, not going to do it. I said, take it to the open field. And at this point, we got like 400 feet. And so small glide, pull to the right. And I'm telling you, this guy was just like stoic, unbelievable. I mean, I'll never be able to repay him or thank him enough. Just think about it, right? I mean, we're 4 or 5 seconds away. I mean, at 800 feet, again, how long does it take a piece of machinery that heavy to fall? 4 or 5 seconds in, I would have been, that's it. That's it. Nobody's surviving that. You're completely pitched down, game over, right? And so we can't go to the street. We get to this field, and it's brace for impact. I turn back, and I was like, guys, buckle up. Of course, they're already buckled up, but it's guys, buckle up. We're going to land hard. And they just kind of look at me, and I just turn right back. And I'm trying to understand what's about to happen. And I'm seeing this field get closer and closer, 100 feet, 50 feet. And before you know it, we hit the ground so hard. I mean, we're going about 100 miles an hour at this point. But we're we got the topography of the grass and the dirt that we're in. And then I boom, face hit the windshield. I never blacked out, which is absolutely incredible. because I hit hard. Obviously, you can see the bridge of my nose. And my wife has this cosmetic gel thing that she put on me, when she saw me, so it helped like bring it back together. But so we drug about 200 yards. Plane kind of spun a little bit, and get out. Pilot, we all get out of the plane. We run. So we see it on the movies. I'm thinking this thing's going to blow up. We had 135 gallons of gas in this thing 15 minutes ago. And we get about 50 yards or so, and he's like, all right, everyone's okay. It was okay. And we just lost it. Me and my buddies, we just cried. We hugged each other. I mean, I went to my pilot, just hugged him. And I lost it, man. You
sent me a text on Sunday and said something epic. I couldn't, it was encrypted what you text me. And it wasn't, I'm not coming, but something happened. I'll tell you more.
Yeah.
And then I pick him up. We go get an IV drip, vitamin C, some glutathione, feeling great. And in the car before we go into the clinic, he says, tells me the story. I'm like, and you're here? I can't, you're an inspiration, to be honest. It's incredible, and a great friend for you being here. And thanks for sharing that story. I just, you guys are there hugging each other. You can't believe you just survived. You're a true survivor. What a interesting end to your documentary, if you do it. This is. We talked about what's on the beach. We talked about. You told me your story, and I said, "What's Saleem 2.0?" And then you said, "Well, I'm kind of losing my edge a little here, but here." 3 weeks later, look what this is. The 2.0.
This is the 2.0. Yeah, this is the catalyst. Definitely a lot of. I'm a spiritual person, so it's a lot easier for me to say that I'm gonna, I've got a good outlook, right? I can imagine what it's like for people that don't have the belief in the higher power. Yeah. I can see why people go through some serious PTSD. I can see how they just lose it. And don't get me wrong, it's hard. Yeah. It's really hard. And I hope it goes away. I feel like it's gotten better. Even in the last 72 hours, I feel like it's gotten better. I can talk about it a little bit without crying. Although even in today's IV treatment,
you're on the sound lounge bed.
Yeah. And I have this like gladiator moment where, Russell Crowe's like walking through this field of grass, and he's, his wife and his kids had all just been already murdered.
Right.
And he's looking at them, and there's this weird little voice in the back singing, and it's just like a really calming moment that he's looking at his family from a distance. And I had this moment while I was doing this thing at this IV place you take me to, and I just had this vision of I was looking in a window at my house, like a year or so after I had passed away, and it was my wife and my 3 kids. They were just sitting in the living room, and they were kind of just doing their thing,
Wow.
And it's just crazy, dude, But to live through an airplane crash, obviously talk about it. Like I know that that's crazy. I know it's crazy. But you know what? He has a different plan for me.
Yeah.
And, the Lord for me may mean something to me that may not to someone else. I know that there's something out there for me that I have not achieved, and I'm just waiting to achieve it.
Yeah.
Maybe it takes some time. Live a healthier life, be a nicer guy.
Yeah.
Take care of my body better. So many things that came out of what happened on Saturday that I think will change my life, obviously for the better. I think it will.
I think the message here is going to change lives, that you were able to share it. Rick, I know I didn't tell Rick before.
Well, to say what happened on Saturday.
Yeah.
Usually it's the big game. You talked about it like, guess what happened on Saturday?
Yeah.
That's incredible. If it was like 3 years ago, one thing, but that just happened.
That moment of impact and realizing you're just okay, it was just like, nothing else matters. Nothing else matters. I don't care if I'm broke tomorrow. I don't care if I got to start all over. I don't care if I'm paralyzed, live. And I just remember touching my body, touching my legs, realizing, okay.
Yeah.
And, there's no other, what the hell, what the hell changed, right? From 4,000 to 3,000 to 2,000 that happened at 800, the guy upstairs, period. Right. Period. I don't care what anyone wants to say. Oh, he was a good pilot. Well, of course he was a great pilot.
Yeah.
But there's other things involved that actually make this work.
Well, you created, I think, the positive vibration that gave him the ability, the thought that you're going to survive. You kept saying that. It was your mantra. Mm-hmm. That was your mantra. Yeah. It's going to happen. We're going to be okay. Come on, Tom. Come on, Tom. Right? Tom.
Yeah.
That, I think, is part of the frequency, healing, and living your highest and truest self is just the positive thought. Mm-hmm. In the midst of pending death, you kept that focus and that positive thinking. That's ultimately who you are in the moment of the biggest crisis of your life. And you just kept thinking positive.
Yeah.
But how did the pilot get that thought? Did he explain that to you?
Yeah, he did actually. This morning we're talking.
What did he say?
So him and I have talked a few times a day, every day.
Oh yeah.
Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and today we were talking about it because we had to get some paperwork in order for the FAA and lawyers or whatever the shit. And we're talking about it, and he goes, he says, I heard you. Just out of nowhere. So I heard you, and I knew I had to make this right. It's like, I heard you.
See?
Said, come on, Tom. And he tells me that I heard you. Like I didn't prompt him to say, did you hear me saying your name at all, dude? Like, or were you just so focused in so I didn't even prompt him. And he says, Saleem, I heard you, man. And I said, what? He says, yeah, man, he says, you were there for me the entire time. I knew it. And I was like, wow, so it was in his brain.
Yep.
But to turn the power off?
Yeah, so he's a very well seasoned pilot. He's got a ton of hours in that type of plane. He's a commercial airline pilot. He's a what do you call it? A flight trainer. He does training simulators in scenarios like that. Actually, it's his first real. Believe it or not, he's 49 years old. Right, it's his first live dive. You have to do it when you're getting your license, but in a single engine, and it's very simple. You're not flying a plane. You're not flying a plane that can't start. The plane will start again. But these were completely shot, and you're in the tailspin of a very heavy. It's a totally different type of. So my other two pilots, I have three pilots. My other two pilots are just flat out, I can't believe this. My insurance broker says, Saleem, you have no idea, man.
I know.
I've written a lot of policies in my life, and that doesn't happen. Right. To get out of that spin, that doesn't happen.
Right.
And so his training, he just said it. I just knew I was going down the list. He's like, just thank God we were at 6,000 feet, 4,000 feet. I don't have the time to go through my checklist of things. And so he was just so stoic, man. I just remember him calling off. He never looked up. And I remember that. I was always looking at him, looking down, looking at him, looking at the altimeter, looking at the ocean, looking at him, altimeter. And I'm just kind of doing this. And he's down here and he's doing this and he's doing this. And he's not stopping. He's doing everything he can. And it's just me. Come on, Tom. Come on, bud. You got it. And he kill power. And
so that kills the power. I mean, it's just incredible. Why would that?
So you're killing the power. I mean, you're basically you're committing to the crash,
right?
So killing power mid-flight is like the ultimate. Don't ever do that. You have no time to restart your engine.
But he said he heard you. He heard you. He heard you.
He said, I heard you.
What did he do differently? Because he gave up, but he still heard you, and somehow, just your positive.
He honestly, he said thank you. Like he was just like, thank you for being there for me. Like it was just like I felt like I was on this island by myself, but I heard you.
Oh yeah.
Thank you, because he's going to save himself.
Yeah.
Naturally.
Right.
But in turn of saving the aircraft, saving himself, you save all of us.
Right.
So, and I was talking to my business partner this morning, and I told him for the first time, and of course his mouth just hit the floor, and I could feel it through the phone. And I told him, I just don't know how I'm going to ever thank this guy. I just don't know how I'll ever be able to repay him in any way, emotionally, financially, physically. Like, there's nothing I could ever do to tell this guy thank you for my kids.
But you, in a sense, saved him too.
And he said, you know what, dude? Not to belittle or to take down what he did, but he also saved himself.
Right.
And he's a father and he's a husband. And there's a drive that we have as men that helps us and gets us to where we need to get to. And he said that's not abnormal for a man to just fight. Be in survival mode and just fight. Not every man's looking at the ocean from 800 feet.
I don't think so.
But
I mean, that is incredibly. You had seconds.
oh yeah, just absolutely 3, 4, 5, 4 seconds.
We are very grateful you came all this way to be here in spite of what happened. And thank you for sharing that story and the story of your success growing up. And then, you know, where does Saleem go here from here? You're in town here. We're talking about some business opportunities. So thank you for that. I mean, what better business partner do you want? A guy that gets in a plane crash on Saturday. He's in your podcast on Tuesday. I want to do business with you. Okay.
you know, it wasn't because you're good looking, brother. I knew I had to do it, man. Like, wow. I am a man of my word, of course, but that wasn't really the main factor. It was, I needed to get over this weird funk. Yeah. And I was just in a terrible spot. I took my kids shopping and dude, I went to church on Sunday, I went to church, and it's the first time I went to church with my family as a unit on a non-Easter Christmas, Palm Sunday type of Christmas or Mass. It's the first time I did it in about 7 years. And after the service, the priest out of nowhere, he probably does it every day. I don't know. I'd never been to this church. He said, anybody here visiting for the first time, if you please stand up, we'd love to recognize you. And I'm like 5th row. This thing has like 70 rows and 2 levels, right? And I rarely even looked back throughout the service. I had no clue who was behind me, what was behind me. I stand up. My wife and kids, they stand up. Just following the line, right? Just following their man. So they stand up. And I didn't say, hey, we're going to stand up. You know, I just stood up. They followed. And the place just went crazy. Everyone, standing ovation. Everybody. And it went on for probably 15 seconds. I went I bellied over on the pew in front of me, and I just lost it. Absolutely lost it. Because that's how many people, that people just love people, man, you know? And you can only get that in the church, right? You can only get that in that type of setting. So the new me is going to totally take a step back. You know, I don't know if I'm allowed to cuss on here or not, but I'd mentioned to you what a lot of my friends think of me, right? Yeah. You're a tough a-hole. I am. Yeah. And a lot of them really feel, especially my wife, I mean, they feel like I've mastered the art of not giving an F. Yeah. Right. Right. And it's just because I'm a very hard-nosed, matter of fact, get it done, militarized, stop complaining person. And for a lot of my friends and for most of my circle who are attorneys or who are lawyers or who are cubicle guys or penny pushers, they don't understand that type of drive. And so I'm offensive to a lot of them. And I've just had this mentality of, you know, outwork everybody. I don't care what your degree says or how cool that paper is. I gave up on that when I took my parents on their first vacation. Like, I gave up on that diploma. So it's now hard work, and it's be a better man, be a better father, be a better husband, and, you know, eat healthy, be healthy, sleep better. There's all those things that it's almost like a long list of things that I know I need to do, and I'm on a total separate lease for life. I mean, definition, lease, rent, paying rent. I'm just visiting and I'm renting my body right now, and I'm going to make the best of it, and I'm going to lead by example. And, you know, if it changes the opinions of a lot of people around me and they don't like who I've become, or they feel like I've softened up or whatever, screw you. You know, I got kids to raise. I'm alive to be a part of it. And I can tell you, you know, I can literally tell you that, you know, life's short.
Yeah.
You know, and if you don't do your part and lead by example and be a better person for society, and, you know, dude, you're just wasting our space. You're wasting our time.
Right.
You know, and I just don't want to be that person. So that's the new me.
That's the new you.
Yeah.
Such a great.
I'm going to stay driven. I'm going to open up businesses. I'm going to generate revenue, and I'm going to continue to profit.
Yeah.
And I'm going to invest, and then I'm going to do the next thing, and then I'm going to continue to generate revenue, and I'm going to invest, and then I'm going to buy a few toys, and then I'm going to continue to travel with my wife and kids, make more memories as I'd like to do.
Yeah.
And just repeat as best I can.
Yeah.
You know, that's it.
Well, you resonated with me there in Belize, and here we are. My appreciation for you is just doubled and tripled for you being here. I know Rick is pretty blown away by what he's heard, and we want to thank Populi. We want to thank Advanced Wellness and Pain for our drip this morning, our glutathione, their wonderful experience, and
that
really
was amazing.
Helping heal you at the right time. Mm-hmm. The sound lounge bed, the relaxation, just the beautiful room, and how Dr. Latham took care of us. Love that place. So I want to shout out to them, because it allowed you to heal before you got here too.
It really did.
Yeah.
Really did.
Yeah. Rick, you want to say
Well,
that?
I took that dive with you. I mean, I didn't expect that.
Yeah.
I mean, I felt that.
Did you?
Yes.
It's that feeling at the top of that roller coaster, you know?
Oh,
It just doesn't end. You know, you lose the stomach, it's in your throat.
Well, I'm looking at you as you're telling this story, and I know you're here, but I had a kind of a sense that you weren't.
Yeah.
How could you be? I mean, that doesn't end that way. It was like a movie. Or maybe it is a movie.
Yes, it is a movie.
I mean,
it's just important that I take that, you know, share it with a few people, and then just be a better me for it.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what I think. That's what I think is important. I think that was God's way of saying, "Pump the brakes on me."
Yeah.
You know?
Amen.
Pump the brakes, dude.
Amen to that.
Yeah. And whether my friends were living a life that was unhealthy, or whether it was me, or whether it was my pilot, we all were in that together. And, you know, it was a cheap lesson, you know, a cheap lesson.
Thank you for sharing. When we had lunch, I said, you know, if you don't feel comfortable because you're not ready, you just sidestep the question and move on to the next. But your characterism, you take things head on.
Yeah.
And
Thanks,
that's just an incredible. I know you've done a lot of speaking. You have Saleem 2.0. You got documentary. We got business to do together. It's going to be phenomenal. And thank you for being here in my Capital Fit 5th podcast. And Rick, as always, a great wingman and my co-host. So
y'all keep doing what y'all are doing. I think that's really cool.
Thank you. Well, we're going to be doing them down there in Houston with your podcast studio.
Hell yeah.
You can tell your story weekly, inspire people weekly. Folks, I've spent a lot of time with him when we met, and the stories he's able to tell of inspiration, of just great advice, teaching businesses, you know, how to avoid the pitfalls of being in a business. You have so much. People will be talking about you like they're talking about Robert Kiyosaki.
Well, you know what?
Okay. You could be the next Robert Kiyosaki.
You know what I see a lot is it's really the famous guys, the actors, you know, the athletes that continuously get this platform to speak.
Yeah.
You know, and it's because maybe we can identify with them because we see them on ESPN, or because they're just a really good athlete, or the guy can throw the football really well, that you feel like you should listen to their story. And a lot of the story is very similar, other than someone like maybe Alex Smith, who really almost lost his life. But, you know, they're good athletes. They grew up in a very terrible environment. They studied well, got to whatever college, got drafted. The stories are very similar. And the same with the actors. They all started off poor. I'm thinking, geez, man, there's so many better stories out there. And why do you have to be famous to tell your story? You know, there's so many stories out there. 10 years ago, I started this thing I've been doing this. It's a coffee table book. My wife thinks it's the dumbest thing, but I know it's going to end up being something that's going to be bought one day. And it's taking black and white pictures of homeless people with their sign in their corner, with their bags or bag in their tent, whatever. Small disclaimer, right? Pay them a little bit of money.
Yeah.
How did you get here? Picture, story, next page. Picture, story, next page. And it's boom. And it just goes from San Francisco to New York, to Florida, Texas, Oklahoma. And it's just, how did you get here? And dude, some of the stories that I hear are just all world. Scientists, doctors, lawyers. I mean, it's just, what the hell? And it's nothing more than just like 5 sentences, maybe a paragraph of who they are, how they got here. And there's just a picture. That's it. But it's going to be a great coffee.
We were playing tennis the other day. Dean.
Yes.
And he has that homeless shelter here.
Yes.
I asked him that same question because how did you get here? I mean, obviously, certain decisions, circumstances. How did you get here? I always said to my kids, because we live in a nice Kiyosaki's neighborhood, how did you get here? It's the same thing, same question.
Yeah.
How did you get here? Obviously, decisions. And what you read, I think that's really important.
And I think how you got through road bumps and tragedies.
Yeah.
Did you fold or did you go head on? We've all been there. You've been there. When Rick and I first met a few years ago. A phenomenal story of like, oh my gosh, what divorce does to family, what, 08, 09 did the financial sector, my business, how I kind of rebuilt and got that plane back to cruising speed. So,
Adversity there's no other better teacher.
Exactly.
Adversity can just make or break you.
It does.
Tells you who you are.
Yep.
Tells you who you're not.
Yep.
And the more adversity you have, the more practice you get.
Yeah. So you've been teaching young men during your speeches how to overcome, how to be, how to think tough in challenging situations. So I don't know how much time we have left here with the studio. Usually it's about 45 minutes.
We've been here for 4 hours.
I would crush that. I would love to, 3-hour show. We could just keep going on here. Well, we got to have you back.
I'm in.
You're going to be back in town. We've got lots to talk about here. You're here until tomorrow or Thursday?
Tomorrow afternoon.
Okay. And then Rick's got a lot of stuff going on with some real estate transactions. And I'll be in Newport Beach for.
I want to chat with you about some of this house stuff, man.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, I'm filtering your story through my book. How did you get here? How'd you get on that plane? I mean, it's a story. And how'd you survive that? But you started out with sugar, and it gives you a high, makes you more better than you think you are at some point in time, but it's destroying you at the same time. And then you took this whole story to that plane spiraling down. I mean, that's an incredible story. And I had no idea you were going to tell that story. I was following you along just perfectly. Everything made sense. And all of a sudden, you say, Dan, you want to go into this? I'm like, well, what could you possibly go into? Well, let's see. I was in a corkscrew dive. What? And because I asked you, I said, wait a minute, Saturday? You mean like this Saturday?
Yeah.
And this is Tuesday? And you told it beautifully. I mean, I was with you on that plane, believe me.
Yeah.
That's the real deal, man.
And the similarities between what's happening with our food, sugar.
Well, the whole country's in a corkscrew dive.
That's exactly.
And and we got to change it. And everything you said helps change that trajectory that we're in as a country. And you covered every aspect of that.
Kill the engine. Kill the power. Kill the power.
Start over.
I'm not saying we go start a revolution, but let's just unplug for a while. Rethink where we're going. Just like unplug.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's a hell of a metaphor for that. I mean, my new book is called Unglued, and it's really how do you get separated from that
Glucose.
life of destruction on our food supply and create a new life for individuals and for the country. And this is the perfect venue for that. This is a story has to be told. Your story is riveting.
Yes, it is.
Riveting.
I mean, you had us all crying here, my
I mean,
friend.
not-
man.
I mean,
they call
this-
it man crying, right? I just heard that.
I wonder if the people listening would actually understand that that's true. It's a true story.
Yeah.
Well, it is, but
they'll see it here too, right?
But
This is
it's shocking to listen to that because you said it in a time frame. I mean, it was there, heartbeat by, and I'm saying, wait a minute, the guy's telling the story in front of me. He had to have survived it.
Yeah.
But at 400 feet, I gave up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I was in the plane with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would have been. This is amazing. This is.
It is. Well, we got 1 minute left of time here for our show.
Just keep telling your
story. We'll have
story.
you back. You'll be back.
I will.
We got a lot of fun stuff planned here in the future together, and
I'll bring the film crew down next time.
Film
I think it'd be kind of cool to get to see this from a different angle. It's it's honestly like a 10-year project, but it's something that I've been working on for a few years already.
Oh, fantastic!
But look forward to it.
We'll tell more of the Saleem Fernandez story the next time here. And Rick, thanks for being here, and thank you, Populi, for helping to be the forum here that we're recording our podcast. We're thankful to Brian Howie, the owner, and his team. So until we meet again, we'll see y'all later.